Unfortunately, this is the final day of Missouri Good Neighbor Week, and our block party in Springfield Park has been canceled because of the weather, but that doesn't mean you can't still be an engaged neighbor.
That's right, Alyssa, and David Burton is back in our studio to talk about the benefits of having good relationships with your neighbors.
Well, we've been talking about how to be an engaged neighbor rather than a good neighbor here on KY3's The Place, and I have David Burton back to talk about that once again. David, hello.
Always good to be here. Thank you.
Always nice to have you. So we've been talking about, throughout the last few days, we've been talking about what it means to be an engaged neighbor versus a good neighbor, how people can go about that, how shy people can go about that, and then gift giving. Why is it so important to have Good Neighbor Week?
Yeah, I think it provides us an opportunity at least once a year, right, to talk about what that means to be an engaged neighbor. People need to be reminded of that. It gives us an opportunity to collect and see examples of what that looks like and really be able to celebrate those in the neighborhood or in the community at large. I think it also can be the starting point for a lot of people. They need, it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to be a better neighbor, and just keep kicking that can down the road and actually never do anything different. But this kind of gives a deadline, or like a week when it's okay to take that plate of cookies across the street or do something helpful for your neighbors. So I think all those are reasons why it's a powerful tool.
It's time to be that spark.
It's time to be the spark. Right now is a great time to do that. And no one's going to think you're crazy because it's Missouri Good Neighbor Week, right? So you're just latching on to what is already on the calendar. And really Missouri is pretty unique in this way. There's a National Good Neighbor Day on September 28th. Jimmy Carter signed a proclamation making that a federal law in 1976. But the 28th moves all across the calendar, right? So sometimes it's a Wednesday or a Saturday. It's not always convenient to do. And so I had told my state representative out in Republic, Bishop Davidson, that my dream was to have a week in Missouri to celebrate neighboring. Well, he ended up writing a bill. And I got to go up and testify on that. It worked its way through the legislature, and on the last day got approved and made to the governor's desk. So Missouri actually set aside this whole week, Missouri Good Neighbor Week. It begins on National Good Neighbor Day, September 28th, and then continues for 6 more days. So Missouri is very unique in that way, but also with the whole week, you can pick the day of the week that works best for you, to do something, to organize your neighbors together, to have a get-together, something that celebrates neighbor friendships and the people that live around you.
That's incredible. And then after Good Neighbor Week, it's not just 1 week that you got to be a good neighbor. You can make that stretch for years to go.
Yes. We do want you to continue being an engaged neighbor beyond that. But that week is really kind of becomes a focal point, an opportunity. I know of other communities and libraries and things that have used that as the opportunity to really tell the story of what it means to be an engaged neighbor, encourage people to read books on neighboring, to go to some classes on neighboring, what that means. Because it's kind of become, it became a little bit of a lost art as the American culture had started to say, a good neighbor is someone who's quiet and leaves me alone. People have forgotten kind of what that means to be, to involve your neighbors in your life and vice versa.
Yeah, being a good neighbor is kind of outdated now because, we've got the social media, we've got people wanting more human contact, more relationships, so people are going out and being engaged neighbors over good neighbors.
Yeah, right. And sometimes people look at their social media and think, I've got this many friends and followers, but the truth is, there is a cap on how many meaningful relationships you can have. And traditionally, proximity has played a big role in that. And so that's why I always say, make those connections with the people living behind the 8 closest front doors to you. That's your proximity. That's your starting point. Yeah, it can be more than that. You can be neighborly to other people in your community, but it should never be less than the 8 that live right around you.
Those friends and followers might be what you think are friends and followers, but when, maybe your house burned down, who's going to help you?
Exactly.
It's going to be your neighbors.
Exactly. Well, there's a great example of that. Echo Alexandra lives in Highlandville, Missouri, and she moved to this area, took Neighboring 101, decided to get connected with her neighbors, had them over for a big barbecue. This is a rural area. They were widely dispersed. I think she had 32 neighbors at that first get-together, and while they were there, she collected names and phone numbers, and they made a directory for everybody. And the week after that, one of the neighbors' homes caught on fire. and most of these neighbors hadn't even known each other before. Now suddenly they had a directory to use. They called neighbors for help with the fire, to help find some animals and bring their dogs back home. And so it's a real useful tool. Whether you're in a suburban neighborhood or a rural area, those neighbors could be your first responders.
And they'll answer that call.
They'll answer the call.
Well, get out there, make those cookies, knock on some doors, and meet your neighbors. David, thanks so much. Where can people find more information?
You can check out the EngageNeighbor.com website or the MissouriGoodNeighborWeek.com website.
Sounds great. And if you have any more questions on KY3's Good Neighbor Week, go to KY3.com.